Don't look under the internet.
We're
Ready?
doing the damn thing.
Sync.
Sink.
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 I know damn well there's
Fucking
housekeeping.
There is.
There
Yes.
is
I was
housekeeping.
gonna get to it. I just wanted to sync up the
Well,
audio
we're
and
not
video.
doing it fast
We
enough.
haven't even cold opened.
It doesn't
I know, I
matter.
just-
I think we're just in the. I think that's just what's happening now.
Yeah, I guess.
I think.
No, you
Welcome
wanna
to
cold
Don't
open?
Look Under the Internet.
There it is.
You know
Well,
us from
we're
such things
professionals.
as Really Tall Podcast.
Yes.
and
Yeah. The
Other
the more
podcast.
Another
popular
one.
podcast.
Really
Anyway,
long
There's at least 3 or
podcast.
4. that
Today's
we're
a
part
special
of.
episode.
Welcome everyone
Mike,
to
why
Don't
are
Look
you
Under
being
the
so
Internet.
quiet? Save us.
I'm gonna just get us out of whatever the
We're
fuck
gonna
that
just
mess
keep
was.
talking unless
Mike
Yeah.
usually doesn't stop, so
Yeah.
So, welcome
gotta take-
everyone to Don't Look Under the Internet, the internet horror comedy podcast starring yours truly, such as Doug over there.
hello.
There's Matt, he's sitting in his house.
Mhm.
There's
As I
Jason
usually
here.
Hello, hello.
There's a me here.
There is
Hello,
a-
hello.
You're gonna notice super special fifth. I
This
guess
is going so
guest
well.
appearance.
Yeah. There's another
The
person
one
on
and the
screen.
only. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Deludi honor on our end. We have Alex Hera in the building.
Hello.
Insert
I am
Yes.
honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, the honor is mine, Alex.
Oh, it's
Don't you
all
worry.
ours.
Alex,
Please
do you wanna,
insert clapping track.
do you want to just like mention some of the things that you've done? I'm sure most of the people who listen to this podcast have at least heard your name before. But
Sure. Yeah. So, hi, my name is Alex Hera. I'm a writer and director. I've done an ARG, and I've done a couple of documentaries, which is what I'm most well known for, including the history of analog horror, and most recently, Slenderverse, a documentary film series.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell
Hell
yeah.
And all of the things that Alex produces are fantastic.
They're so
And
fucking good.
If you haven't watched any of them, you should go watch all of them.
You should.
I would personally mark you down as probably like the internet's historian on
On
Just
analog
on
horror
analog
and ARGs, just
horror,
weird
yeah.
internet spaces.
if it's a thing that needs like an overarching like this is how it came to be. Analog
Related
horror,
to
I feel is
unfiction.
yeah, it definitely needed that, and you definitely supplied it, and
Yeah.
in my opinion, the best manner possible.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah,
I appreciate
I've
that.
been watching the analog horror history video. I've seen it once,
yeah.
but now I'm just going to sleep to it because it's great
It's like the
watch.
March of the Penguins, but it's the March of the Internet Nerds.
Yeah,
That's
true.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Now, before we get too deep into why Alex is here, I'm gonna go ahead and just cut us right into our Deludi housekeeping.
Clap above your head.
So, for those of you first tuning in for some reason, probably because you saw Alex was on here and you're like, oh shit.
Oh,
Yes!
this is worth listening to now.
This is what we're listening to now.
Got 'em.
Housekeeping is when we go over the little itty bitty things that, small updates and whatnot of the show. Like, for example, the patrons and members that became members of our website and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah.
So if you don't know,
Oh.
patreon.com/DeludiPod or Deludi.com, you can become a member there. You get all types of extra bonus content, merch discounts, specific like merch is like exclusive to members of the website. So that's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, get a
Uh,
beans mug.
Yeah.
Go get your beans and peens mug.
So we like to play a game called Is the Name Good or Bad?
Yeah, this is where we
Oh.
haze our,
Where we
our
ridicule-
people that pay us
we-
money.
We ridicule our patrons. And they love it because they're still here.
And they
Yeah,
keep
they
coming.
keep paying us money.
They do
so
keep coming
clearly
back.
It works.
And I know we haven't said it out loud on air, but I hope everybody knows that this is all in jest.
Shut
and
up.
in good fun. Okay. All right, I'll go fuck myself, I guess.
So we're going to start off. We have Nika. I like it. Short, sweet, to the point. And Nika
Okay,
makes it-
in terms of like real people
I'm
names, it's a
out.
decent name, but in like keeping with
In terms of-
tradition, you
Yeah,
used
no.
your real name, and that's not allowed here.
You could have picked any name.
It's
could have
no
been any-
Bigfoot sister bitch.
It's
fat.
not Bigfoot sister bitch fat. That is very
or
true.
big jug hot
or
cheese.
big jug hot cheese.
So
The bar is set real high, y'all.
Oh yeah.
So Nico, sorry, it sounds like you got to change your name. I don't make the rules. Up next, we have a Monochrome 808. I'm here for it.
From 808.
Kind of sounds like a synth band.
I was
Uh,
gonna
Sounds like
say,
a vaporwave
Because an
synth
808
band for sure.
is like
It's a little
drum
music,
machine.
yeah.
yeah, I'm here for that one. I'm here for that one.
I feel
think it's
I feel
good.
like this is like a
Respect it.
2008 gamer tag. You just need to throw a couple X's on the front.
Yup.
Yep.
Lowercase
100%.
and
Lowercase,
uppercase.
uppercase.
All right.
No.
You're good. You did it, Monochrome. Good job.
Yeah.
Last
Alex,
but
you
not
should
least-
ridicule our patrons too. They're not paying.
Actually,
money,
let's-
but
Let's give Alex the last one. How about that?
Yeah, all right.
Last but not least, we have Curbs, like Kirby without the Y. Curbs. So what
Love
are you
it.
thinking, Alex? Good name, bad
Love
name?
it. I love it.
Loving it.
Yeah.
All right.
I get
You
the
heard it
impression
here
that
first.
Alex doesn't have like an evil bone in their body, so probably not the right person to ask.
Just grateful and non-shitty through and
You got
through.
lucky, Curbs. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Don't
Come back next week.
I spared you.
You know what's good.
Yeah.
for me.
And really, that's really going to be it for housekeeping. I don't really have any other updates besides that guy going on.
I think we have more important things to talk about anyway.
Exactly. So
Yes.
leaving housekeeping, I do want to bring up that Alex, you recently had a multi-part documentary series come out, a 3-parter, where the last part just came out to us a couple days ago. To whenever this drops, it'll be roughly around a week.
About 11 days ago.
Yeah, about 11 days ago, and it was basically touching on Slender Man and the histories and doings of. And
The verse in which he resides.
yes,
Yes.
exactly. So we've basically compiled a list of a couple questions that we wanted to ask Alex and kind of see if we can get a little bit more behind the scenes information on the production of that documentary and I guess how it also affected you during its creation.
Ooh, absolutely. There's a lot there for sure.
I will
Yeah,
say
we-
that I learned a lot from these documentaries because I thought I knew things about Slender Man, and then
Same.
I watched all 3 of these documentary parts and was like, oh, I didn't know anything about Slender Man.
I knew zero.
Oh, yeah.
I marketed the whole thing as the untold history of Slenderman for a reason, and there were
Yeah.
people in my comments on the trailer going, "There's no untold history of Slenderman. We know the history of
Right.
Slenderman." And for the entire week leading up to the first part, I was like, "Oh, you don't even know how little you know."
Seriously.
Absolutely.
Because I'm coming from a vein of I grew up when that whole era was happening with social media just kind of gaining traction on the internet and seeing Slenderman kind of come out of that, holy fuck, this is horrifying. And me being who I am, I try to go on a research rampage, know everything I possibly can about the things I'm interested in. And armed with that knowledge, even going into your 3-part series, I felt like I was a complete fucking amateur.
I was
It was
honestly like, how
insane.
could this possibly be 6 hours long? I don't understand
Right.
how there's enough content. for this.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people were in the same boat as me, where a lot of the information that I knew about Slenderman just came from the 8 pages video game. Outside of that, I was
Yeah,
like,
that was my introduction to Slender Man.
Yeah, it's just through the
Exactly.
cultural osmosis, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like
Most
that was
people.
kind of the main, what brought it into the mainstream. Because then you got, I know you mentioned, and we might get down to it a little bit later, but that's when the Let's Players, when the big Let's Play boom started taking over, and that was the big game to play, and that's what got it into mainstream.
I'm kind of sad though. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't get in on any Slenderman stuff when I was in that 2009 area.
Mhm.
Because I was fresh out of high school, being a degenerate college kid, and I missed all of that. I came into it super late, and I'm really sad I did because my first introduction was Marble Hornets, and I've loved Marble Hornets since. But
so good.
I almost didn't even realize how many other there were
Holy
out there
shit,
that I
yeah.
could look into it, and that blew my mind. I also really loved that it almost felt like I was watching what was it E True Hollywood story
yeah, yeah.
at some points in this. I was like, wow, all of these people have some crazy drama going on. It's really
Yeah.
good stuff. So
I think we should
Yeah.
let Alex talk though.
I
Yeah,
know, I
let's
know.
get to
Just-
the,
we got our
over
gush
here.
out of the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Doug, it looks like
Appreciate
you
it.
are starting us off with some of these questions. So
Yeah, so we'll start off
yeah.
real simple here. How were you first introduced to Slenderman?
Ooh, so I was first introduced to Slenderman when I believe was 6 years old, though I may have been 8. It was
Holy shit.
yeah, I think I was 8. It was right around the time the 8 pages came out. because I was too young to be like hardcore looking into ARGs in my free time. But I was, but I knew that like YouTube was around, and so I was exposed to it through people who found out about the 8 pages and then found out about Marble Hornets from there. So my first exposure wasn't the 8 pages; it was through Marble Hornets. But I only found Marble Hornets because the 8 pages made it so much more popular than it already was. So after that point, I discovered it, immediately was like, oh my god, this is incredible. Started watching all sorts of Slenderman stuff, reading Slenderman stories online, Googling everything I could about Slenderman. I lived in a rural town with only like a couple hundred people as the entire population as well. Which I think had a big role to play in why it appealed to me specifically so much, because it was like literally going outside. I was like looking at forests every day.
You're living in it.
So I was literally living in Slenderman's woods like all the time, and I was just like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, literally like he could be outside right now. All the stories I'm watching look exactly like where I live. How strange. So me and my friends, my elementary school friends, we started going out into the woods looking for Slenderman. Like literally like 4 to 5 like 6 to 9-year-old kids tramping through the forest with like flashlights and like shitty cameras, like trying to find evidence of Slenderman.
This is a regular like
Stranger Things.
No, this is a regular like Stephen King. What's it where they find the body?
Yeah. Fuck, what is the name of that? I don't know. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
This is straight out of a fucking Stephen King novel.
You want to see a dead body?
My whole life is kind of a weird like horror story, except just it's all the parts before the horror happens. Luckily, I haven't gotten to that part yet, but we'll see. But yeah, so traipsing through the woods looking for Slenderman, and like also writing some little Slenderman stories, just because I always wanted to be like a novelist. And then later I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker, but I wrote these little like Slenderman stories and whatever.
I think the novelist part does show in the way that you're able to write.
The writing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that was my first exposure, and then from there, just Slenderman went into the pop culture like consciousness and kept showing up, and got into ARGs a bit later, and was like, oh wow, Slenderman was like such a bigger part of this whole ARG thing that I now also love. So it's like Slenderman's just been following me for my entire life.
Damn, that's a terrifying sentence.
Kind of really cool to say though.
It kind of is, yeah.
I mean, I understand that feeling because I used to live in a house that was just literally in the middle of all cornfields, and if you open the front window to the house, you were just staring into a cornfield that was probably like half a mile long, and I would imagine sometimes that there was just like Slenderman standing on the other side of that cornfield, just like staring back at me.
That's horrifying. I love it.
I remember one night I was in my car waiting for someone, and I had just learned about the fact that the more you know about Slenderman, like the more that he comes for you. And I remember just getting a shiver down my spine. It was like midnight in my car, and I'm waiting for someone. There's like one street light behind me, and I'm like checking my 6 over and over again. I'm like, fuck. I am horrified right now.
Yeah, I get scared when I see my reflection in the window sometimes. So this doesn't work well for me. None of that was my experience. First time I learned about Slenderman, I was like, I'm turning the game off, shutting the laptop, throwing it away. I'm done here. I'm gonna go put on cartoons. I'm like 18. I don't care.
Come on, grab your friends.
We got a lot of questions to get through, though.
We do. Okay. Yes, let's move right. This is just what we do. We tangent.
Yeah.
So, in the vein of this, why did you focus so heavily on Slenderman for this 3-part documentary? Why not do something like Cicada or something that has more of like I don't want to say a specific following. I'd say Cicada almost covers all of these like weird internet tropes, whereas Slenderman's kind of like this very specific like cookie cutter creepypasta built world building exercise, more or less. Like, what was it about the Slenderman mythos or everything around it that made you focus on that versus something that had a little bit more like heft to it to begin with?
Sure. So, I mean, there's a couple different factors why I decided to make Slenderverse my next project following the history of analog horror. I think first and foremost, the easy answers to get out of the way are like, it felt like a very natural continuation of that previous documentary where the history of analog horror does touch on the Slenderverse a little bit. And the way I envision it is currently I'm telling the history of unfiction in reverse order. So like I did the analog horror, which is the most recent chapter. And then I did Slenderverse, which was like the chapter right before analog horror that like set all of the groundwork for analog horror to exist. And then what I do next is going to be a chapter before the Slenderverse that set a lot of groundwork for the Slenderverse. Not going to talk about what that is yet, but so that's sort of like the filmmaking answer, I guess. But there's also a huge aspect of like I didn't want to focus on say like a single project and just do a documentary about that. That wasn't that interesting to me. And Slenderman had this whole universe, you know, the Slenderverse surrounding him. And so it was a way to, you know, not just lock into like one piece of art, but to lock into an entire artistic movement. Again, same as analog horror. And then, you know, just for me personally, there's so many reasons that I wanted to do it. Like, as I was just saying, my first exposure to him was when I was so young, and I've been, you know, having him kind of in my brain for my entire life, and always kind of wanted to do a story or something with him. And, you know, beyond that, also just the opportunity to meet a bunch of the creators that like, you know, had inspired me so heavily when I was young. Because, I mean, being exposed to Slenderman so young was a huge reason that I was so interested in horror and in storytelling from such a young age. I mean, I was interested in storytelling before I was exposed to Slenderman, but really, like, when I found Marble Hornets and all the Slenderman stuff online, that was what really kicked it into high gear. And especially when it came to, like, filmmaking later on, when I really got into, like, ARGs and web series, Marble Hornets and Neverman Hybrid were, like, the two series where I was like, oh, I want to, like, do this forever. So just for me personally, I was like, oh, I really would love to like talk to these people and tell this history properly, right? Because there's so many different versions of Slenderman's history, and people have tried to explain it before. But like, as someone who was there on the ground, I'm like, I know you guys aren't doing this right. So let me take it.
My turn to take a crack at it.
I got this.
Show 'em how
It's
it's done.
absolutely a passion project for you then.
Oh yeah, through and through.
Okay.
There's no
So-
way I spent 18 months on this and it's not a passion project.
You know, that's very fucking fair. So this is
Damn, that's crazy.
simply because you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of passion, and just a lot of experience in this vein. That was kind of the determining factors for you to be like, why am I doing this?
Yes, absolutely. And then also,
Okay.
again, like it felt like a very natural continuation of my previous documentary.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Okay.
You also answered just a random one-off question I had, which was, how long did this thing take to film? 18 months. Oh my gosh, that's a long
18
time.
months from, yeah. So we did the research starting in January of 2023. I guess we did like some preliminary research in 2022, but we weren't like really hardcore to the research yet. But yeah, so like January 2023 is when we really got into the research, started doing interviews a couple months later, did interviews until I want to say like May, I think. And then into like the writing phase, and then we did all the shooting in August and September, and then it was just editing from then on.
I mean, you can
Damn.
definitely tell that you spent the time on it. And I
Oh
think-
my
yeah.
God,
I think
yeah.
I wanted
your
to do
labor
it
was
right.
definitely rewarded. So
Yo, you did it right. That is for fucking sure.
my next question that I had here, I think you've basically already answered, so, and you won't answer it because you said that you're not going to say what you're working on next. But are there any big projects or big topics that you would like to do that you are willing to talk about?
Ooh, well, there are many topics I want to do. Whether or not I will get to them at some point, I don't know. But I love this stuff so much. I love horror. I love internet horror specifically. I love ARGs. So like, I'm always like thirsting for knowledge, and I love talking to artists and learning about their process. So like, there are so many things I want to at some point get to. I don't know exactly how it'll play out, but I already have my next documentary project in the works. And again, I won't spoil the topic. You could probably guess it in like 10 guesses.
It's us.
But I'm not
It's
going to
us.
confirm it. Yes,
It's
I'm here to announce
phenomenon
officially.
known as
I'm
Deludi.
making a 3-part docuseries about Don't Look Under the Internet.
How they're the worst.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, all the IQ points you will be compensated for, not out of our pockets. But
Oh gosh, no, I can't
some
afford
class
that.
action lawsuit will.
Yeah.
I
take
guess
care of you at
so.
some point.
Have you listened to Deludi in the past 12 months? You're entitled to compensation.
That's right after the Peter Francis Geraci fucking commercial.
So with any of these other like big I guess other ideas or other topics that you would want to cover, do you foresee yourself keeping primarily doing documentary styles, or do you have any, I guess, ideas or want to go in a different storytelling direction, or just another direction in general?
Sure, this is a great question. So one thing I will talk about, I won't talk about my next documentary project because I'm the type of person, I came from the Todd Howard school of how to announce projects, which is wait until they're done basically, and then just be like, oh yeah, we've been doing this the whole time. Nothing to say about the recent Bethesda project, but at a young age, I was like, oh, that's cool, I'm gonna do that. And so I've continued to do that because I don't really like people like the public being like, when's the next project? I'm like, just wait, I'll tell you when it's ready. But I will talk about the very next project I'm doing, which is not a documentary. I'm doing a narrative feature film shooting in 3 weeks. So that'll be a found footage feature.
Yes.
I won't say too much more about it, but that is it's happening. It's going to be shot in the next 2 months, and it's a narrative. It's not a documentary. So I've always wanted to tell narrative stories. The documentary thing just kind of happened accidentally, and then I went, wait, hold on, this is really fun, and also people seem to really enjoy when I do this. Maybe I'll keep doing it. But I'm at the point where it's like now I'm balancing both, right? As I have the narrative path and I also have the documentary path, and I'm sort of like alternating between the two.
I think it definitely helps that you, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but definitely capitalized on, I think your history of like analog horror, was it 2 years ago that one came out, I want to say? That was around that time when like long form media on YouTube was starting to become more rampant and successful. So I think that was like lightning in a bottle. You grasped at the perfect time as well, and it just hit out the gate. Because I mean really that's a very good video of yours too. It's got over, I want to say like 2 million views on it, if I'm not mistaken.
Funnily enough, it was not a hit on release. It like positively was received, but like I think we did like 5,000 views in the first week or something. Like it was not huge. It was only like, I think like 6 months later that the algorithm was finally like, wait, hold on, this is
just got that YouTube
really
check in the mail, like, what?
Yeah, they're like, wait, we missed this.
$4.
So, yeah, then it blew up, which was insane because we were already in pre-production on the Slenderverse documentary at that point, and we were like, oh, it's just going to be seen by like 5,000-10,000 people. Like, it's fine. And then it's like, no, actually, you have an audience of like 2 million people now, potentially. It's like, okay.
It's insane.
I absolutely foresee
but like
the Slenderman documentary blowing up too. Because
I hope so. No, I've long believed that YouTube is going to be a home for documentary creation in the future. I mean, it already kind of is, but I really think like, at least I have my fingers crossed that we're going to see a huge explosion of like proper independent documentaries on YouTube. I think it's the place for it. I think it's the time for it. I think independent film's on the rise. I think it's going to happen. I hope so.
What's the reasoning for thinking YouTube's going to be the spot for that?
Well, I think younger generations in particular are really into YouTube as a space for nonfiction content. It's really interesting the way the younger generations perceive it, because I think like millennials really perceive Netflix as the space for that with true crime documentaries and things like that. But in recent years, they seem to have really kind of fallen off in terms of like, I don't see Netflix documentaries going viral on like Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Like people aren't making TikToks about the newest Netflix documentary. They are making TikToks about the newest Jenny Nicholson video, right? Like, you know, YouTube nonfiction content is going places, and nonfiction content from studios is not. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. I think it's, you know, the stuff that studios are putting out maybe aren't the most like super, they're not that bold, I think is what's going on. And I think like also as we're in a point in culture where people's interests are getting more and more niche, that, you know, a studio isn't going to dedicate millions of dollars to doing a professionally produced documentary about, say, Slenderman, but but you know, a YouTuber will, and so it'll appeal to that audience, which is big enough to sustain a YouTube audience, but not big enough to sustain, say, a Netflix audience.
Yeah. And like
that tracks.
Like you said, you get kind of closer to the source of the people who understand the topic, because you bring this up in the Slenderman documentary, actually, but the documentary that was made about Slenderman and you know, some certain topics surrounding it was done really poorly, and so a lot of the documentarians and stuff that work for big media companies don't have the knowledge necessary to actually make good content on some of these topics. So.
Yeah, it just depends on if they're going to put in the effort, right? Like there are really good documentaries made by studios about really interesting like artistic topics and things. Like it can happen. It's just like I feel like a lot of the time they don't put in the full effort.
Few and far between.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's all cash cow, cash grab. Like that's all it is. They need to make their money back.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll ask right quick since we're kind of still on the topic here. Was there anything with all of your researching for the documentary, was there anything that you learned that was new and fresh to you about Slenderman or any Slenderman lore that was out there? We're just like,
oh, you have no idea.
Oh, cool.
Oh, you have no idea. I went into this project expecting to make a 2-hour documentary. And I came out of it with 5.5 hours of content. So yeah, no, I went into it kind of knowing about the main Slenderverse series. Like all the series that get like a spotlight in the documentary were the ones I knew about. I didn't really know that much about like the blogs, so that was a whole new like chapter of lore for me. Like I knew a little bit of it, but it was really digging deep into that, and then like realizing that, oh, this isn't just like a thing to dig into. This is like the deepest rabbit hole of like Slenderman lore I have ever seen. Like I still don't know everything that happened in the blogs because it's just so massive. Like I do not have thousands of hours to read every blog. Like literally, it's that big. So learned a lot there. I did not know about, obviously, the Slenderverse creators group, because that was a very shockingly well-kept secret. Yeah. No one knew about that, really, besides the creators themselves. And so that was a huge moment where when I learned about that, and then I started learning how intricate it was and how much stuff happened there, that was like the big turning point where I was like, okay, this is a series now. This is not a single documentary.
That chat they had was like one of the craziest parts of this to me. I was like, holy shit, like that is so smart on their part to do. Like how in the, like, I don't know, more people need to do that to like get their shit together, I guess. But like it was smart. It was very smart.
I feel like people don't work together enough to like do that. I feel like it's all a competition, whereas like this is one of those areas, and it's not really that way today anymore. And that fucking sucks, but it feels like all of these different Slenderman, Slenderverse creators had each other's backs and were like, that's so fucking cool what you just made. That gives me an idea. I'm going to make something now. It was never like, fuck you, mine's better. Like, it was never anything about that. But now you see that all over the place.
I was going to say, I think that's a kind of the problem that you see nowadays. Is that once someone capitalizes on a topic, it's their topic now. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
it's mine.
It's, okay. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's smart. It reminds me of the Lovecraft like mythos a little bit, where a bunch of people are coming together to write the same universe.
Just terrible, less terrible life views.
Yeah,
yes, that's for sure.
In most
100%.
No, it really was a mythology, and it really was like, I love the term chaotic fiction because it's something that I thought was only like an academic concept for so long, and then I discovered the Slenderverse blogs, and I was like, oh wait, no, this is a real thing. Like it actually happens. Like this is chaotic fiction. This is it. I found
this is pure chaos.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was great. It was a beautiful time in the internet, and things are not the same. That's for certain.
So I would agree with that.
So speaking of chaotic, how was it working with so many creators at one time?
It was interesting. You know, there was a lot of emails, a lot of messages, a lot of scheduling conflicts, but mainly it wasn't that like difficult in a particular sense. Once I actually got in contact with them, that was the hard part for some, because a lot of people were, especially like Evan Jennings, for example, like just does not check any messages or anything because of like past horrible experiences with fans. There's a lot of interviewees who were like just really not into the idea of being interviewed just in a general sense. So, you know, it was very fortunate that I got a couple people early on to agree to interview with me, and I got them to trust me, and then they vouched for me for the other interviewees. So it really was like, even the creation of the documentary itself was a community creation, because I wouldn't have been able to create the documentary and get access to all the people I got access to without the community coming together and basically being like, okay, we'll trust you to make this documentary.
Damn. All right.
Yeah, so that kind of leads into a follow-up question I had, which was, and you kind of already mentioned it, was how did you actually get a hold of all these people? Were there some people that were exceptionally difficult to get a hold of? And
Yes.
like as an extension of that, you mention, or several people mention in the later parts of the documentary, that they sort of left the scene and disconnected because of some of the toxicity and how uncomfortable they were being a public face in the scene. And so were some of those people apprehensive at first about coming back to work on the documentary?
Very much so, yes. I was like, there were a handful of people that were very open early on, and those were like the very first interviews I did. But then, as I mentioned, there were people who I wanted to talk to that I just wasn't getting responses from. And then, like, out of the blue, I would get a response from them, and then I would talk to them and be like, "Oh yeah, Dylan vouched for you, so that's why I'm talking to you," or you know,
Jesus.
yeah, shout out to Dylan. Or like there were some I didn't even get though, like Vinny from Everyman Hybrid. I tried so many times, and I had people vouch for me and everything, and he was just like, "No, I'm done. Like that's it. I'm not coming back for this." And like totally respect that 100%. Like I get it. But you know, like that's really like the Slenderverse ended so badly for some of those people that really they were just done.
Yeah.
Or this was like their one final return where they were like, I'm putting this to rest by doing this interview.
Was it upsetting that you couldn't get Ron Browse, the artist behind "Give Me $20" on the documentary?
I was wondering what you were looking up.
I forgot his name.
You know, I should have. It's my fault.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you can vouch for us now when we want to interview them.
Yeah. Sure.
I got these guys.
I certainly
with-
understand that, and like I respect that. Just being like, I'm done. I'm never talking about this again.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
There were
We
I got those people that
some
live in their
experience
best
in
life.
that vein.
There were a few people that you could kind of tell like,
Oh, yeah.
this was huge for them. This was an incredibly emotional adventure, like the whole documentary, and it had a lot of heart behind it, and I like that.
Yeah. No, it was emotional for a lot of the interviewees just talking about a lot of these topics. Some of those interviews were real intense, I will say. And then also like hearing a lot of them reach out to me again now that the documentaries have been released and be like, you have no idea how utterly bizarre and strange and disorienting and emotional it is to see like 5.5 hours that are basically just reenacting my life.
Yeah.
I have to imagine that's super strange to just like.
Oh, it's
live
got to
through
be
this.
so weird for them. I feel so bad, but like, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like even if you feel bad, it's a story that I feel had to be told.
Oh yeah. No,
and I don't
mean,
think anyone else could have done it
No.
with more.
Fuck.
What's the word I'm
No.
looking for?
Respect.
Gusto.
Respect and passion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? They would be like, this was very weird and strange and also like and bizarre, but also this is the most like respectful of the story I've ever seen, and I'm so happy you did this. Like that's the reactions I've been getting.
Oh my God, yes. And that's actually what I was thinking throughout the entire time. I do have a question, getting more into like how everyone kind of works together. Was there any kind of criteria that you had pre going into the deciding that this was going to be a 3-part series, not just a 1-2 hour video, but did you have any criteria that related to who you were going to have in the documentary? Was there anything that like negated people? Was there anything that made them like put them up on a pedestal? Like what was it?
Sure. So the decision process for who ended up in the documentary was sort of a mix of very purposeful decisions and a mix of not very purposeful decisions. Like,
Okay.
you know, I had my like set list of people I really wanted to talk to, and so those were the people I reached out to first. And then those people would often suggest more people that I should talk to, and then I would go research those people and decide like, okay, should I bring them on? You know, so that's how the people, like, that's generally the decision process. There was one of the big rules I had was I didn't want like more than 2 people from any particular project in the documentary, which is why like I still feel bad that I didn't have Alex Madden from Dark Harvest in the documentary, because he so deserved to be there with the No More Blogs segment.
Yeah.
But I was like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a little silly if there's 3 people from Dark Harvest and like every other series has like 1 person. Like that's
I really
it's
hope
a little
he
silly.
makes a video called "No More Documentaries" and it's that exact same vibe about you.
I really enjoyed that part of the documentary, and it, like hearing some
Yeah.
people get riled up again about something that happened like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And, like,
yeah. No,
actively
there-
start
there's-
campaigning again.
They're still pissed. Like, that was the funniest
Oh my
thing about the
God.
out of game streams when we did finally bring Alex Madden on, because that was part of the live streams, the after live streams, was I really wanted to get a chance to talk to those people who like should have been in but weren't, like, just for time constraints and just for the, you know, the reasons I mentioned weren't in. So we got Alex Madden in there, and like, yeah, there was still some sparks flying, which was really funny. But yeah, no, so that was the decision process. There were a lot of people I wanted to get and didn't get. You know, most particularly, like, I didn't get the 8 Pages creator.
Okay.
And, you know, I did invite Markiplier. He didn't respond.
Fair.
Too busy playing FNAF.
Yeah, did see that on the
Exactly.
live stream. We invited
Yes.
Markiplier. He never showed.
we invited him to the after show too, and
Yeah.
again, he did not respond.
You lost a subscriber.
Oh,
I'm unsubbing
Wah,
right
wah.
now.
Fuck you, Markiplier.
We also noticed not only
Just
the
kidding.
physical bodies in the documentary, but some of the voice acting. Like, for example, one of our admins and honestly huge supporter of ours, Jason Death. How do you go about getting people for these voice acting parts? What was the role like there?
Sure. So, I mean, the voice acting stuff was just another in a series of escalations in how big the project was getting, because it went from like just interviews and monologues to then having all of these live action like reenactments and narrative segments. And then on top of that, I was like, oh, what if we also have like some voice actors here? Like, what if we get some of these, especially the blogs? I was like, man, we should really get some of the blogs like voice acted. And so I just put out a bunch of calls. I did a call on my Instagram and on Discord and a couple Discord servers. And I got some people who were like, hey, I really liked your analog horror documentary. Like, what's up? What are you looking for? And I'd be like, I'm doing a Slenderman thing. And like 90% of the voice actors I got were like, oh my God, I fucking love Slenderman. Like, they were so excited. So it was really fun. It was like, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to just be like, oh yeah, I'll do you a favor. Like, sure, why not? But no, people got like, the voice actors, a lot of them got real into it. And they were like, dude, I'm so happy to be a part of this. So that was fun. That was very cool.
Nice. I'll ask too, Doug. Sorry, I'm going to skip over you just a smidge, but
rude.
I was curious because we've been talking about what it's like to have to be working with all these creators, voice acting, but I'm interested in as well. Like, you see them in the documentary, you see them obviously in the credits and everything, but you had a relatively decent sized cast of people just running shit in the background.
Yes.
Have you, I guess, managed this many people before on another project? How was that for you too? Because I know that probably wasn't the most fun thing in the world.
No,
But-
so this was in terms of like the filming stuff, all of the like live action segments, that was the biggest project I've ever done in terms of anything film related. I mean, the way I envision is we basically shot a feature film. Like, you take all those live action segments and you smush them together. That's like, 1.5 to 2 hours of live action like scenes. So we basically, I got a feature film crew together and shot a feature film worth of footage. So yeah, that was a big thing. There were like at least 20 people involved overall in terms of like making all of that happen. And I'm so extremely grateful to all of them. Like Bardia Samia, the director of photography, incredible, doing all of the camera stuff. Also Lana Hagag and Brian Todd were the assistant cameras. We had, Melody Williams was the production designer and behind the scenes photographer, which I should release some of those behind the scenes photos because they're really good. Of course, Darvin Acevedo and Elijah James, the assistant directors. So many people were involved in this. I call it the Slendernomicon. I don't know if it's going to catch on in the community, but those were done by two incredibly talented artists, Mariana Acosta and Carmen Navarrete. Both just so, I was blown away because I reached out to them and I was like, hey, I'm doing the Slenderman thing. Do you guys want to like draw some art for this? Like, would you be cool with that? I'm going to give you like this book. And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? And then they like give it back to me 3 weeks later and it's that like insane artwork.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. Like, what the hell? Like, how did this happen? So I was, oh my God. Yeah, no, really. One of the most insane experiences of my life by far for many reasons, just in terms of getting that whole crew together, like, and doing all of these, like, bringing 15 people out through like, you know, a 15-minute hike through the woods with to our filming location, like with Slender Man hiking alongside us, like at 9 a.m., like, or you know, getting the Slendernomicon pages, all like just bringing, like taking all of this weird Slenderman stuff I've been into since I was like 8 years old, and then being like, yeah, now it's like coming to life in front of me, and there's like 20 people here helping me bring it to life. Like wild stuff.
Childhood you would be throwing a fucking party for one. Just going
Present day me
nuts.
is throwing a party.
Fair.
So during the time on this, were you able to work with any of the creators in person, or did you do all of your interviews purely online?
No, so all of the interviews were online. You know, there were a couple reasons for that. I mean, first of all, it wasn't very practical to do in-person interview shoots, but also I really like the aesthetic of having all the interviewees be online. I think it feels true to the spirit of the thing, in a way that I think is really interesting, and it makes it as like a documentary about online content, and having the interviews themselves also be online, I think adds an interesting like layer to that. But it's yeah, poetic. No, so exactly. It feels like it's in the spirit of the thing.
Oh, 100%.
And yeah, so I didn't meet any of the interviewees in person. I did meet one of them later in person, funnily enough, just over the course of the production, unrelated to actually making the documentary.
Met him at Walmart.
But
hey.
no. But yeah, no, it's been wild though, because I keep in contact with a lot of them, like a surprising amount of them actually. I keep in contact with. And
That's
so now
awesome.
I'm making plans with them. I'm like, oh, what project are we gonna do next? Like, hey, do you want to come be like a producer on my next documentary? Like, you'll see.
That's fucking awesome. You've cultivated like a community around yourself that's interested in the same shit and wants to see the things that you do succeed. That's fucking great.
Like the late addition to the Slenderverse creators group.
Yeah, there's a part in the last the final chapter of your documentary where you mention how they all went out to go see the movie.
Yes.
And they invited like Nick Nocturne and all that.
Yeah.
That's gonna be you here soon.
100%.
Exactly.
You're going to be invited to movies by a bunch of strangers you've never met before.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. I see nothing that could go wrong.
Nothing at all.
I feel like meeting Nick Nocturne in person would be the most intimidating thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that voice.
The voice and just like the clout. Like, oh, that's a presence to be in a room with. But speaking with the people that you did get to work with, who did you work with on the Slenderverse project specifically, that you were kind of most excited about working with? And I don't want to like put everyone that you
Who's your
worked with
favorite?
on pedestals, but like,
Who's your favorite?
Was there somebody that stuck out to you personally that made you go, "Oh my god, I am so fucking excited to interview this person, to talk to this person, to work with this person"?
There's a couple for sure, and it's not necessarily who you would expect every time either. Like, obviously, I was very excited to get Tim Sutton. That was a huge, kind of a surprise. I was not really expecting to get anyone from Marble Hornets. And I was really happy when Tim was like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll do it." That was crazy. I was like, "Whoa, hold on, we're like, this just leveled up."
This is a thing.
Yeah. So that was one moment. Also, you know, getting like Kay and Jules Dapper, I was so excited to meet them just because I respected them so much as creators, and I was like, I just want to nerd out about Slenderman with you for like an hour. Like, can we do that? And we did, and it was great. But also, like, two of the ones I was really excited about. One was Trevor Henderson, which, again, another one I didn't really expect to come in on it. But I sent him an email, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? I'll come talk about Slenderman with you." And that was really cool. And then the other one would be Julie Becker. You know, I got in contact with Neil Cicierega, and I was like, "Hey, I'm doing this documentary. I want to talk about Slenderman." You know, the parody video, and he was like, "We should talk to Julie, because she's the one who actually like wrote it and you know, directed it and everything." And so, one, I was just really excited to talk about Splenderman, but then two, I was like, oh my god, I got to talk to like the person who actually made it, and like now in this documentary I get to like set the record straight about like, because everyone thinks Neil Cicierega made Splenderman, and it's like, no, that's not true, you guys are wrong.
And I know here
That must
In
be
this
so
6 hour.
satisfying to be able to be like the person who's like, hey, you guys are wrong, and this is
The
how
expert.
this actually
Oh,
happened.
you have no idea. There's behind every scene in that documentary, like I will never do it on on screen in the film itself, but behind every scene, there's me just kind of cackling to myself and going like, haha, I get to set the record straight. I get to tell you the truth.
I bet you just wish you could
flipping
take
off the audience. Just
you
yes!
could take everybody and just like force them to sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
In this 6-hour, 3-part docuseries, I will tell you how you
Why
are
you're
wrong. I am right.
So taking a break maybe from Slenderman for a second. Is Slenderman your favorite like unfiction or analog horror-esque topic? And if not, what is?
I think it probably is my favorite topic, just because I had such a young exposure to it, and also like as I've come to research it and spend so much time around these creators, I've only come to love it more. Like, it's one of those things where you'd expect to get sick of it, after spending 18 months intensively like researching it and quite literally spending every day thinking about Slenderman for 18 months. You would think like, yeah, by the time you're done with that, you probably don't want to think about Slenderman anymore. But I'm over here dude, I want to do more Slenderman stuff. Can I do more Slenderman stuff? Like, can I keep talking about Slenderman?
Did you have any
we only did
Slender-based
Ashlogs for like
nightmares?
a month and a half. And we were tired of that. So.
Slender-based.
Yeah.
I have not had. I don't think I've had any Slenderman-based nightmares. No, that would be interesting. He'd get in my brain.
Docuseries Part 4. You're welcome.
Docuseries Part 4.
Vlogs.
It's just me in the middle of the night, like ranting about my dreams.
It's just your phone camera. You're just like, so I had a really weird dream. Flashes right in the face.
Hey, you film that, we will cover it.
So what is
I'm
your favorite
advocating for
topic?
Part 4. Sorry, Matt, I didn't mean
it's
to
fine.
cut you off.
Every single time one of us asks a question, somebody else asks a question. It's
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just saying I was going to advocate for the 4th part being like a blooper reel or something.
That'd be funny.
that would be good. Yeah.
Well,
Very
I
good.
do have ideas for a 4th part. I won't say any more than that.
Ooh.
What is your favorite topic that isn't Slenderman? Then?
Oh,
Are you
that
allowed to
isn't
say?
Slenderman. Yeah.
You're legally
Oh.
obligated to tell me right now.
I will give you my 3rd favorite, I
Oh, okay.
suppose. Which
Okay.
is, it's just gonna be, I think, like creepypastas more generally. Like, you dive into like the Rake and things like that. Like, that stuff's really interesting to me. And also, like, well, I guess this might actually take precedence over that. Even is the Millennium horror going on right now? And I still refuse to use the phrase digital horror because I think it's wrong. But Millennium horror, which is like the Morley Grove and that kind of stuff, I think it's really interesting, and I think we're really just seeing the start of it. Which is really exciting because you look at what analog horror did and how that sort of evolved and got into a place far different than what it was when it started. And you look at like the way people are now using the digital aesthetic of like the 2000s to create horror, and not even necessarily to create horror, but really just using the 2000s digital aesthetic in general to tell stories. Like, it doesn't even have to be horror, just in general. Like, I feel like that's such an untapped market because we're seeing a lot of like films now that are sort of purposefully using like old like film stock or making themselves look like VHS tapes and things. Like, we're seeing a lot of that using the analog aesthetic for some really interesting stories, not just horror, but again, like dramas and mysteries and things. And I think digital is going to have that same sort of renaissance, and I'm really excited to see what kinds of new stories come from that.
What is, I guess, Millennium? I've never heard of that before.
Well, it's just digital horror. It's just my pretentious name for it.
I've never heard of digital horror either.
It's like the new generation of analog horror. I envision it as the next evolution of analog horror. A lot of people seem very dead set on saying it's entirely different. It's not entirely different.
It's just because it doesn't follow the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, it's
format.
doing it's the same exact vibe as analog horror, like stylistically. It's just the execution is slightly different. So it's like it's very much along the same lines as analog horror, but it's just a different time period, right? Because analog horror is very situated in the late 1900s, and then digital horror, Millennium horror, is situated in the very early 2000s.
Yeah, I've seen in analog horror discords like people sitting around like arguing over whose project is and isn't analog horror and what's digital.
Oh my
horror.
God.
They're missing the point so hard.
Splitting hairs.
Yeah.
They're missing the
like-
point so hard. Just make art, guys. Just make stuff.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yes.
Like
It's like heavy
don't
music.
put it in boxes. Stop putting boxes on things.
This happened to the fucking same thing happened to the heavy music scene. Like
Yes.
there are so many labels for what, like, oh, this is Finnish singing Russian funeral doom metal. Like,
Ooh,
okay,
just
great.
bluegrass.
This
Yeah.
is
Just
just
make
fucking
the
metal.
thing you want to
Like,
make.
I
right.
want,
It,
I want this whole thing to like meta itself to death. So like 20
Right.
years from now, there are people who are trying to make horror based off an aesthetic that is like 2020, but the 2020 aesthetic is so laced with analog horror and digital horror that it just like starts collapsing in on itself.
I can't wait for analog horror.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a horror story. Someone making an analog horror.
Neo
it's
analog
Deadstream, but
Yeah.
Cue Matt just
Post-analog horror.
breaking into this like segment with tire screeches going, let me tell you something about
let
analog
me
horror.
fucking. I also think Mike might literally snap in half if we don't let him ask this question.
Yeah.
I can feel the tension.
So
He's violently shaking right now.
we've sort of covered this question before, so I'm going to change it up a little bit. So I guess, is there a certain like dream topic or like dream circumstance of yours where if like money, time, there's no restrictions, you had free range, do whatever you want, what would be that thing for you? Would it be like kind of like how right now you're making like a more of a like a feature length film? Would it be something like that? Would it be more of like a full blown series? Like, what would be your dream ideal scenario with no constraints?
That's so good. I have so many. That's the problem. Is like I'm very much an artist who focuses on what's in front of me. I try not to like. Not that I don't dream big, because I certainly do. I have all sorts of, as I just said, like huge ideas of things that are like, oh, I need like $500 million to make this. Like, that's not gonna happen. But like, you know, I try not to like really go in depth on like planning those things. They're like kind of hypothetical ideas. But in terms of those ones, there's a couple. I'd love to do like a fantasy trilogy someday, like a Lord of the Rings type thing. I have this like cosmic horror film rattling around in my head. This like real Lovecraftian, like insane, like it's basically like Event Horizon and the Thing like crossed, and like it's gonna be if I can make it, it's gonna be wild. And then of course there's also the more recent one, which is God, you know. I would really love to do a big budget Slenderman movie.
Fuck yeah. Make the one that's worth watching.
Exactly. Oh, you have I have ideas for what this Slenderman movie would look like, and it's like the most insane. You would not recognize it as Slenderman at the outset.
You have got to stop tantalizing my fantasies with these fucking ideas. You just hit all of my buzzwords.
Get someone to give me a blank check. I'll do it.
All right. I can't get
We're working on it.
GoFundMe.
Yeah.
I only just now found out that Event Horizon was like a Warhammer movie in its essence, or
Kind of.
Lovecraft.
No, I heard it's like a Warhammer movie in essence.
What the
Well, Warhammer
fuck?
has
definitely-
some cosmic horror Lovecraftian elements to
But
it,
it-
but I haven't really heard that specifically.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I don't know enough to be able to tell you you're wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I
I don't know
literally
enough
just
about
watched a
Warhammer
random.
to say anything about this.
I just watched a random video on it last night. It made no sense, but the guy's like, in the Warhammer community, they talk about Event Horizon, how it's got such great ties. I'm like,
I mean, maybe just in the
maybe.
sci-fi
Good for them.
sense.
This is the first
yeah,
I've
good for
heard of
them. You made a connection I couldn't see. Fine, whatever.
It's got way more biblical references than I'd
Yeah.
say
100%.
Warhammer, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know,
I almost wore my Event Horizon shirt today.
well, you should have.
I should have. What was I thinking?
You done did fucked up, Doug.
All right, back on track.
I'm surprised we've made it this far and remained this on track.
That is very fair.
We're
It's
making
probably
it
because
through
less
classes. We're
alcohol.
doing
yeah,
this.
it's because this is up here, not down here.
All right, so here's one. So what is it that you want people to take away mostly from this documentary? Like what is it that you want the people to know?
First of all, Slenderman's really cool, and you guys shouldn't have let it die. You guys shouldn't have done that. Keep making Slenderman stuff. It's good. He's cool. Don't stop. But I think more seriously though, the things I really want people to take away from this documentary are, number one, go make art and just do it. Just don't let anything stop you. Don't let rules stop you. Don't let equipment stop you. Don't let money stop you. Like, just go out and make the thing. You have a phone in your hand. You have ideas in your brain. Go out, make it. Like, it doesn't matter if it's good. Who cares if it's good? You don't even have to post it if you don't want to, but make it, right? Make it for you.
Yep.
Make it because you need to get that art out into the world in any capacity. And yeah, again, there are no rules. There is no gate. There's no, like, someone can tell you you're doing it wrong, and it doesn't matter. You could just do it because you want to do it that way. Like, literally,
you can't be doing it wrong if nobody knows what you're doing.
There is no way to do it wrong. Like, if you want to, like, make money off of it, like, yeah, sure, I guess, but, like, that shouldn't be your first thought. Just go make it. Like, that's the core of that entire series, and it comes in all 3 episodes. Is just make
100%.
stuff, and you don't know what will come of it. You don't know, like, your skills will improve. You'll find stuff that you love while doing it. Maybe it'll somehow put you on an entirely different life path. Maybe you'll meet people who become like your found family for the next 3 decades. Like, you never know what will happen, and nothing is stopping you from just going and doing it today.
Yeah, I'm always on the
Love hearing that.
side of saying something doesn't have to look incredibly good as long as the story is there to pick up where the other pieces can't lift. I mean, you have like a Blair Witch Project, for example, a movie that Matt doesn't like, but you know, it was just on a shitty like handheld camera, but
the budget for that movie was tiny.
Yeah, when the plot can keep up where you know your tools can't. That's another thing. I'll reference back. Even I feel like YouTube is like an excellent medium for that as well, because it's just full of. It's the place where you can go and just put your idea out there.
Yeah.
And you'll have creators like Jules Dapper, Daisy Brown, who you know, a fantastic story. The puppet was, you could tell, it was literally just paper mache, but that doesn't matter because the plot keeps it going. I can look past that because it's the fact that this is a story driven. The story drives it.
Yeah,
I don't care if the thing doesn't look real.
There are many things we've looked at where it's like, technically, this is not great, but it's creative, and I just appreciate this for the fact that you can see how they creatively used what was available to them. And
yeah, absolutely. You know, I feel like young creators get so caught up in like what a film should look like, or what an ARG should look like, or like what does the audience want, like what is I need to make this for like the next year, and it has to have this very specific goal at the end of it, and it's like, why? Like, there's no writer. Like, the more I learn about film and the more I experience art just in general, looking at art in history or looking at independent art scenes now, like, the more I just come to realize there's no right or wrong way to do art. Like, you know, you can say like, oh, Hollywood films, that's the right way to make movies, but that's not true. That's just one way to make movies. Maybe it's the most profitable way to make movies. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just they decided to make movies that way and people just are accustomed to that now. Maybe if independent films were the type of films Hollywood made, maybe those would be the most profitable movies. I don't know. That's not the point. The point is there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like, you can tell your story however you want to tell it, in whatever medium, whatever style, whatever bizarre editing and cinematography. Like, as long as you're telling a story that people care about in any sort of way, like, that's what matters.
Oh my God.
Or tell a story you care about that nobody else cares about. Whatever. Fuck it.
Fuck it. You care about it. Just hearing you talk about passion like that is it literally warms my heart, simply because a lot of the media that I've seen anyway, I can't speak for these fine gentlemen, but a lot of the media that I've seen lately, it seems like it's almost like a cookie cutter cash grab type. Like, I'm doing this to make money, and you just do not feel like the resonation of the passion and like all the emotion that you dump into it. Whereas when I literally watched you on screen talking about how fucking awesome Slenderman is and how you're going to talk to all of these different creators about it, you can feel just the electricity and the emotion from it, and the effects that were a part of it made it just incredible. If those effects weren't there, I think the effect of the 3-part series would have been the same. Simply because you managed to pull out so much fucking emotion between yourself and some other creators, and that's really, as somebody who is a sucker for a story, fuck the special effects. If you have a good solid core of a story, you've got me 100%. And so that's what I kind of latched onto. speaking of the story, and considering we're talking about Slenderman,
Yes.
do you ever kind of foresee that Slenderman is gonna like have a second wave, almost like a re-comeuppance?
You know, it's interesting because we're kind of seeing something like that now. It's weird. Like, it's too early for me to say that we're in a Slenderman resurgence, because, like, we don't know how it's going to play out in the next couple of months. But you look at what happened in June of 2024, and you look at the documentaries came out. Marble Hornets did a fundraiser for a new book with a new video. Dark Harvest came back. Like, you have all of the, like, three major pillars of, like, you know, Slenderman, three major Slenderman-based projects kind of all coming back at the exact same time. And then, you know, the community really flocked around the documentaries in a way I didn't expect. Because, like, I went into the release of the documentaries kind of expecting, like, mild enthusiasm from a pretty dead fandom. And instead what I got was, like, everyone from, like, every corner of the Slenderverse, like, from the last 10 years came back and was like, wow, this is really exciting. Like, I can't even tell you the number of comments or tweets I've gotten of, like, your documentary has inspired me to go make a Slenderman story. I started making it yesterday. Like, hundreds of these comments that are like, I'm making a new Slenderman story right now because of your documentary. So, like, literally, there are hundreds of new Slenderman stories that just started last month, and if that's not a resurgence, I don't know what is.
Fuck
There's someone in our Discord that just posted that they started a Slenderman thing. So
honestly, if we don't end up covering Marble Hornets or Slenderman related things in the next like month, I'd be fucking shocked. And like that's simply because of what you re-put in front of our heads.
Don't make promises.
I ain't got that kind of time, dog.
I'm the only one saying this because I get excited about things.
We're gonna be going in August.
We'll only do it if Alex promises not to listen to it and tell us everything that's wrong with it.
No, we'll have you back.
I'll listen to it and tell all my friends behind your back. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's what we expect.
We just have Alex back, and they
Also
just tell us
that-
when.
It's just Alex on the episode.
Yeah, we're
I'll
just
just
not
take
there.
over.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So more on the topic of Slenderman. So you cover that Slenderman is represented in multiple different ways, and each person has their own interpretation of it. Going so far as it's mentioned that in a lot of the Slenderman media, there is like kind of this unwritten rule that you don't actually call him Slenderman, and that you make up your own interpretation and visage of him. What is your favorite vision or interpretation of Slenderman, but what does Slenderman mean to you?
Ooh, that's good. So my favorite interpretation is still to this day Goraleotep from Dark Harvest.
Okay.
I love it so much for so many reasons. I guess the main two though are, one, I love his shambling walk. It's so creepy. Like it disturbs me so deeply on a fundamental level in a way that like Slenderman standing still and like doing other shit is still scary. But like the way he's like this bizarre malformed like
He's like
being
mangled.
that's like
Yeah.
it's like Slenderman is always conceptually like some sort of strange being that's just like shoved into a weird misshapen like man shape. But I think Dark Harvest more than anything else captures that because he doesn't just look like a man but wrong, he walks like a man but wrong. And it's like that just scares me.
It's
And
that scene
also-
from Men in Black
Valley,
1.
Yeah, with Edgar.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
walking down the
yeah.
street. There's like,
That's so true. Yes. No, it's exactly like that. And then also I love the cult aspect of it. I love the idea of Slenderman
Cults.
being like painted as a god.
it's
and
like it's the
having, like,
Lovecraft mythos, but with
it's
Slenderman.
literally
It's fucking
it's so,
great.
It's so Lovecraftian, but just Slenderman. And yeah, like and especially the way Chris does those scenes, like with the cultists and everything. Like it's just so cool. Like I can't help but love it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh my god, I
and-
fucking hear that.
Red
It's
tie
so
or
good.
black tie? Which one's better?
I won't give a canon answer to this, but I will say the way I approached it was red tie was the fake one, black tie was the real one. So you know, do with that
okay.
information what you will. But yeah, and as for
Confirmed. You heard it. It's confirmed 100%.
Someone record this.
Disclaimer: I am not speaking in an official capacity as a Slenderman historian. This is my own interpretation.
They're lying.
This is
As
my
if
own
the disclaimer
interpretation.
Yeah,
We have a lawyer on retainer.
Don't worry. We
Yeah.
always preface this with don't listen to anything that we ever say because we're not fucking experts. And we're very
so
stupid
true.
sometimes. So I don't think you have to worry about anyone taking that too seriously.
Yeah. No, as for what Slenderman means to me, though, I mean, I think the way I approached him in the documentary, and I mean, if I was approaching him in a horror story specifically, I think the way I would envision what Slenderman is would be different. But what Slenderman meant to me in terms of the story I was telling in the documentaries was Slenderman was an icon representing, like, in some senses artistic creation, but in other senses what I had him represent was Slenderman himself. Like, there was this Reddit comment that weirdly caught on. I mentioned this in one of the out of game after shows. There was this Reddit comment about the Star Wars sequel trilogy that was like, the reason the sequel trilogy feels weird is that, like, it's looking at Star Wars through the lens of Star Wars, whereas, like, the original is looking at it, like, through the lens Star Wars the universe through the lens of, like, a Western or, like, through a fantasy story or whatever. And again, not saying nothing about the sequel trilogy. I'm not saying that interpretation is right, but that comment, that idea of, like, looking at a pre-existing property through the lens of the pre-existing property was really interesting to me. Like, what if you did that on purpose instead of, like, just doing it accidentally for, like, nostalgia bait? Like, what if you did it on purpose to, like, critically analyze the property through its own lens? So, like, so that's how I approached Slenderman, was like, in the first episode, Slenderman kind of represents what you'd typically expect Slenderman to be. Like, Slenderman represents the idea of what Slenderman is supposed to be. And then in episode 2, he gets unmasked. And so Slenderman in that episode represents the community around Slenderman. And then in episode 3, when the quote unquote real Slenderman comes back, it's kind of like representing the virality, and, like, Slenderman represents the death of Slenderman. It's very meta and confusing, but it makes sense in my brain.
Yeah.
It makes sense as long as you've seen it. That makes 100% sense.
Yeah, that kind of. So I had, like, some tag on questions here, and that is kind of one of my questions was the documentary. So you mentioned the people. Like, is this documentary more to you about Slenderman, or is it about the community and the people that made Slenderman?
Oh, it's about the community 100%. I mean, I think especially after you get past the first episode of the documentary, because that one you could argue is a little bit more just about Slenderman's lore and development. But even in that sense, you have the community aspect coming in with, like, the Marble Hornets crew and what they experience with them going to, like, cons and stuff. Then you have the Everman Hybrid crew, and they're talking about how much it meant to them to, like, do this for 8 years. And then you have the blogs, which is all about how it's about the mythology and the lore, but it's about the mythology and lore through the context of the community collaborating in this very chaotic way to create that mythology and lore. So even the first episode is very central about community. It's just what's at the forefront is maybe a little bit more of the lore and mythology. But episode 2 and 3, the community is front and center the entire time. Like, I think episode 2, that's very prominent because it's like, you have these bits about, like, Dark Harvest and Stan Frederick and all of this, but, like, even in the context of those, they're always talking about, like, oh, this is what it was like to enter the community and make this project in the context of the community. And then, of course, the creators group, all about the community. Episode 3, like, we're looking at the 8 pages, and we're looking at the stabbing, and we're looking at the movie, but, like, almost nothing in the documentary actually talks about what the game or the movie or the, like, anything, what the event actually was beyond just, like, the context you need. Almost every single one of those segments is just about how the community reacted to that thing. So, like, it's very much about the community. And that was something that just developed over the course of production, because it was originally supposed to be a much more cut and dry historical doc about, like, here's Slenderman, here's how Slenderman evolved, okay, bye. And then, like, I actually, like, dug into the story and learned all the story and heard all of these creators, and I was like, well, this isn't a story about Slenderman, this is a story about people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what's going to be more interesting to a lot of people, is because you're sort of pulling back the curtain on the things that you can't find online. Like, there's no unfiction thread anywhere that you could be able to find or anything that actually explains these interactions between the creators. This is all stuff that they only know. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think
Exclusives.
yeah. So does anybody else have anything else you want to ask Alex, or can I combine 2 of my tag-along questions into the last question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead,
for
man.
it.
Yeah.
So my last question that I wanted to ask you was just what inspires you as a creator in general, And then, would you ever consider making a documentary of this style about something that isn't unfiction or internet horror?
Sure. So, answering the first part first, what inspires me? You know, it's interesting. There's many different things that inspire me. Right off the bat, I could say music is a huge inspiration to me. I listen to music constantly. I listen to it when I'm brainstorming. I listen to it when I'm writing. I listen to it when I'm not doing anything, and then the ideas just kind of come, and I'm like, oh, where'd that come from? I guess it's from the music. And then also what inspires me is definitely just consuming films and art. I aim to watch like a movie a day or at least a couple a week. And I post all of them on Letterboxd because, you know, I'm a pretentious filmmaker. But, you know, so
we need your Letterboxd app because
it's a Hera. Go follow
nice.
me.
I'm going to follow you right now.
You got a
yes.
request incoming from Doug.
I use
Hell yes.
Letterboxd all the time.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
We talk about
so-
movies on this podcast almost fucking constantly.
That's awesome.
Too much.
We'll also blur that out if you don't want anyone else to know.
Oh no, go ahead. I don't care. But yeah, so movies are a huge inspiration to me. I especially in recent years, I finally got myself out of like just watching like popular or well-known movies, and I'm like, foreign movie from the 60s? Sure.
Hell yeah.
Like movie shot on 16 millimeter that like only played in weird art house theaters? Like hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Experimental film told in a non-linear fashion with like no dialogue? Fuck yeah. Like and
Hell
those
yeah.
like those actually inspire me so much more than watching like any sort of contemporary movie for the most part. Like, and I do love contemporary movies too. Like I go to the theater probably once a week to
Damn.
see new stuff that's coming
Even
out.
after
But,
COVID?
like, yes, even then. Because it's just theaters are like a sacred space to me. I can't explain
No,
it.
for sure.
I love them.
I've noticed that there's the people that view theaters as like this sacred space for films and movies, and I see the people who are like, I can just watch it at home. Fuck this.
Yes,
like I
it's-
just want
it's
to
a
know which
very-
side you're on.
Yeah, no, it's a cultural divide for sure, but theaters are very special to me, and so I make sure to go as often as I can. But yeah, so movies, huge inspirations for me, all types of movies, and that's my recommendation to any filmmaker who wants to learn more or to be inspired, is just go watch all sorts of movies from all different years and styles and genres and countries and everything. But then also more generally, I think what inspires me as a storyteller, most of all, is just people, honestly. Like, just learning stories from people, learning their life stories, learning what they're interested in, like talking to people, getting to know people, learning about weird cultures and different cultures and, you know, different like communities and all sorts of things. Like I'll go and just research different stuff, different groups of people or different like someone's life or whatever, or I'll go talk to someone for 6 hours. Like, and then at the end of it, at some point, I'll be like writing a story and I'll think of it and I'll be like, oh, there's a piece of inspiration. And so like, yeah, just telling stories about people is really important to me. And so therefore just learning from people is really important to me and a big inspiration.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things you can do as a documentarian is like finding the people whose stories are worth being told and make sure that they get told in the way that they need to be told. And
even people's stories that aren't worth being told from like an entertainment perspective or anything. Like everyone has a story to tell, and it might not be the most interesting or unique story, but everyone's got one, right? Like, and there's something to grasp onto in every single one of them somewhere in there. But yeah, and as for the second part of the question, if I would ever do a documentary not about unfiction or internet horror, yes, I definitely would. You know, I have a couple ideas for documentaries that I want to do that are about more general horror topics or about kind of, I mean, I guess this is cheating, immersive media more generally, but like even outside of anything related to this field, anything even tangentially related to this field, I would love to do documentaries about like some more like quote unquote like real world topics. Like I would do that at some point. I don't know when, but it's definitely something I enjoy doing, like doing the Slenderverse docs, getting into the real like you know, personal dynamics and the, you know, the more like real world incidences in the third episode and stuff. Like I really felt like I was in my element there even more than I was in the like internet horror stuff, and I was like, whoa, wait, this is like really fulfilling to talk about like real world, like real shit. And so like I think in the future, definitely, if I have the opportunity to do a doc about more like, you know, real world subjects and less focused on like internet stuff and less focused on like horror specifically, like absolutely I would.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that a lot of the stuff that inspires you is not anything that's even remotely in the same realm as the sort of
Not even
content that you create.
close.
I find that
No.
that's pretty common with people who do things really well. I've seen that a lot with music, like metal artists who are like, I don't listen to metal in my free time. I listen to classical music or rap
Yep.
or like
Or
Absolutely.
reggae, or like
Yeah. No, I often, like when I'm doing horror, I often don't draw inspiration from other horror movies. I'll draw inspiration from dramas and comedies
Hell yeah.
and like, you know, and all sorts of other genres. And like, you know, and even in the documentaries, like all of the film segments, like, I mean, I did draw from horror movies a lot. Like I drew especially from like Evil Dead and stuff in a lot of those scenes. But like the thing I drew from most when doing all of the live action segments, all of the stuff we filmed was music videos. Which I think people might not like initially think like, oh, how is that connected? But like literally
see that.
every scene is structured like a music video where
Yeah.
it's all visual and it's all like a lot of it's metaphor and a lot of it, like if you watch it as a linear narrative, it doesn't necessarily hang together, but like aesthetically and thematically it makes sense as a narrative somehow. And like even like my monologues, like I literally view that as like in a music video when you cut back to the singer like lip syncing. Like that's
Yeah.
literally how I view like the
Yeah.
moments where the camera's on me in the monologue and
that
then it goes to
final
other
scene
shots.
with you and Slenderman's behind you is
Yeah.
very like 80s pop
Yeah.
music, like on top of a mountain, lip syncing to the song kind of
Absolutely.
aesthetic. So I can see
100%.
that. I can definitely see that. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. I think that's how you keep innovating and keep things fresh and keep things from becoming derivative. Because if you only
Well,
draw
yes.
inspiration from
Yes.
things that came before you, then
Yeah, exactly. If
it's
you only
same
draw-
vein inspirations.
Yes, exactly. Like it just turned into a like self-repeating cycle at a certain point. Like you got to bring in new ideas from other places. And there's always resonances and places to merge things together from different spaces.
okay, that's super interesting.
I would agree. Well, that's
I think Mike had.
Yeah, I
yeah.
just have a weird random one. This is off topic
Sure.
for a lot
where do
of things,
babies
but,
come
like,
from?
Yeah, can you tell me? I have no idea.
Wait, if you have life insurance, this is important. If it's illegal for you to die.
That's what I've been told.
Yeah.
Well, you were told right.
We
And I
were
was confirmed.
confirmed. Yeah.
We also got it confirmed by a lady.
So you created your own analog horror, Walker Creek.
Oh yeah. Oh, we're going there. All right. Yeah.
just
Oh,
a
yeah.
smidge. I'm not going to
so
dive too
down.
in.
No, I'm
Yeah.
down.
I'm not diving too much because full disclosure, I haven't looked a huge amount into Walker
Sure.
Creek. But I looking at the documentaries and everything, I do want to, I guess, ask you, what gives you the right? No.
Waiting to pull that one out for a whole fucking episode.
I was waiting to hear it.
I guess what spawned you wanting to create your own analog horror? Like obviously you have the creative mind, but were you just sitting there one day like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh my gosh, I could make this a full blown thing. How do I go? Like, what were the steps in your brain to get to, I guess, making this analog horror and
Walker
then
Creek finale.
and then going and then I guess maybe like flipping the switch to documentaries a little bit.
Sure. All right. Let's just go through the whole. We'll loop back to the first question, and we'll just get the second half of my backstory because I gave you the
Here
first
for it.
half. I'll give you the second half now. So yeah. So after discovering Slenderman, and then fast forward a couple years, I was interested in. I did some YouTube stuff, and then I deleted it all. And then I got into ARGs, and I was like, whoa, this is like the coolest form of storytelling I've ever seen in my entire life. I want to do this now. And that's when I got into like Everyman Hybrid and then Daisy Brown and Hi, I'm Mary Mary and a bunch of other
God.
ARGs. And I wrote like an English research paper on them, and then I tried to make my own. It was called This Town Has No People, and it never actually materialized. But 1 year after that, so that was like 2019 when I tried to do that one, or maybe 2018. And then during 2020, we were in lockdown, and I had already like tried once to make an ARG, and it was already in my brain, and I already was like, this is the coolest form of storytelling I've ever seen. And now I was at that point on the path to becoming a filmmaker. I was in film school. And so I was like, okay, why don't I just try to make an ARG? And I was watching a lot of analog horror stuff at that time. I'd already been huge into Local 58, and then I got huge into Gemini Home Entertainment. That was like one of
Hell
the
yeah.
biggest. That
Fuck
was
yes.
the huge one that I was like, whoa, this
The
is so
iris is
cool,
here.
and I think I could also probably make my own just like this. And so I did. And then over the course of that, it went from like kind of a little bit of a just sort of replicating what other people were doing in analog horror to like trying to make it more of a full-fledged ARG. And then it was like this really, I still think it was kind of cool. It was like this combo analog horror, real-time ARG with like internet puzzles. And then from there, it then expanded again into like having full-on like everyman hybrid type, like found footage vlogs and everything. And then you get to the end, which is like, it's like 4 videos that comprise the finale, and it's like an hour long if you put them all together, and it's basically like a found footage movie. And it's so that was like just over the course of that project, I just kept escalating more and more into like ARG and found footage production. And then I got to the end of that, and I made Making an ARG Walker Creek, which is a feature documentary about the creation of Walker Creek. And that, people were like, this documentary is better than Walker Creek. Number one, ouch, but like, right. But number two, I was like, oh, well, hold on. I really liked making the documentary as well. And also I got like some attention from some people in the unfiction community at that point who invited me into this Discord server with some relatively well-known names. And that like kind of gave me a little bit of a base to like, then I was like, well, I want to do like maybe a analog horror history video. And so then I talked to some of the people in that server, and then I started getting the ball rolling on that. That's how I met my producer, Rain, and we started working together on the analog horror documentary, which again started pretty small. It was just going to be like a video essay kind of thing. And then I added the interviews, and then I added the live action stuff. And so it got progressively bigger as well. At the end of that, then I was like, okay, now we do the Slenderman thing.
All right.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's the complete
Now
encyclopedia.
you have all of the Alex Hera.
Alex Hera.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Goddamn.
is the Alex documentary
That's
now.
very interesting. I think
Yeah, right.
it's very funny though. The documentary is better than the series.
Yeah.
That's what I've been told.
Well, hey, you found your calling, because
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
again, from what we've seen, the shit that you've put together is just top fucking notch. And
Thank you.
so we started doing this whole thing over the pandemic. I know we've talked about this a couple of times on the show, but Doug and I would just send random ass videos back and forth to each other. That's where we saw Ash
Lot of
vlogs, a lot of
That's a
Nexpo.
good
We
one.
went through the entirety of Ash vlogs, and actually, the reason this podcast even exists is because Doug and I wanted to get Mike on a recorded medium and just trying to present that to him like it was real and get his like raw reaction of like this real thing existing on the internet. And then it just kind of turned into, you know what? There's a lot of this shit, and we actually really like this.
We've
And
gone
so-
full off the rails since.
full
so-
off the fucking rails. But no, that's I'm like a giddy fucking schoolgirl right now. Like I feel like I know so much about you as a person, and especially watching the Slenderverse, Into the Slenderverse docu-series that you did. It just I don't know. Credit is due for sure, because the passion is very fucking apparent, and that is something, at least for me, that has been missing in a lot of pieces of media lately.
Mhm.
And that's why I see new things and I'm just like, meh,
Yeah.
it's okay, whatever.
Thank
But
you.
seeing you present this shit like it's like you've lived it, it's I don't know. It was refreshing and it was fucking awesome. So thank you for
Thank
that.
you. I appreciate that. My whole platform is just I talk about everything really excitedly and run into everything I do head first with just immense passion. And it seems to have worked out so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for blessing us with your time, and thank
Yeah.
you
for having me.
for doing what you do. I keep it up, because I think
Please.
there are a lot of weird things on the internet that just kind of disappear over time, and it feels like there was at one point this collection of people who were very well versed in it and kind of took it for granted, and then nobody actually bothers to actually document it and make a lasting record of what happened. And I think what
Yeah.
you're doing is very important.
Very.
The internet is forever until it isn't.
Right.
And then you
Until
realize
it isn't.
actually it's not forever at all.
Yeah.
You're the Criterion collection of YouTube.
Yeah. You know what? I'll take that.
The vault, the Disney vault.
the Disney vault of YouTube.
Yeah.
This is the point of the show where I just kind of we wrap it up, and I just kind of plug all our shit.
Well,
Before I do that,
I was gonna say, yeah, Alex, do you want to do a shameless plug where people can find you and all that
or a
good stuff?
shameful plug, either one.
yeah.
Thank you very much. You can find me at youtube.com/@AlexHera_. That's where I post all of my videos and documentaries. And I have probably every social media that you can think of. So just go to the YouTube, and then all my links are there.
Fantastic.
That's easy.
Perfect.
Is there anything else you want to say, or just generally?
Impart to the people.
Go watch the Slenderverse documentaries and go make Slenderman videos or any videos. Just go make art. Go do it. Like
Go make shit.
That is my core philosophy: is go make stuff. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
And
I would
I like
say,
it. I like it. I like it. I like it.
I would say, similar to what Alex said, youtube.com/@DeludedPod. There's our shameless plug. And
Ours is
similar
shameful,
to
though.
what they said as well. Our linktree.com/DeludedPod. We're on all socials. DeludedPod at everything. Or
Just
go look
Google
under the internet.
DeludedPod.
Look us up. But here's the fun thing. Our Google phone number, 630-909-9366. You can go there. You gotta let me say it at least once, otherwise the people don't know.
You keep saying that I have to let you do things.
You're
I think we may
in front of our
actually,
guest.
I think we may actually be breaking it though, because nobody's left his voicemails in a while. So
Yeah, so let me do
You know
it.
what? Let's see what happens next week. If I will not touch it,
909-9366. Once more, that's 630-909-9366. Hey, rules of three, 630-909-9366. Leave us a voicemail.
that might be the first time he's gotten it out all 3 times.
No, I
I
did
still
last
don't
week.
even know our number by heart.
Leave us a voicemail, play it at the end of the show, much like you might hear here. And or text us and we'll respond because we got nothing else going on, man. Text us. It'd be cool.
AKA Mike has nothing going on.
Inquiries go to deludedpod@gmail.com. I don't know why I made that a business structure, but I did. Linktree.com/deludedpod. You can find our links to everything there. I will also say, at deluded.com. Once again, thank you so much for coming on, Alex. You have no idea when you sent that email. I literally
we were
stopped
all like, oh fuck.
what I was doing and I messaged in our chat and I was like, motherfucking Alex Hera just emailed us. And
Yeah, we were all like, it's
"Wow."
happening! It's happening!
Lord. I'm so happy to be on. This was a blast.
This was so much fun.
I knew like there was a moment on Twitter that you followed us like months ago and I was like, oh fucking shit. Alex Hera just followed us.
God damn.
I never thought anything else would
Yeah.
come from it, and then here we are.
You know
I
what's
was
so
like,
funny is I was waiting for an email from you guys. I expected one at some point when you followed me. I was like, oh, they're gonna ask to talk to me at some point.
I-
Oh no,
I'm
we
so
know our
down for
place
that.
in the world.
Yeah, we know
we
our
don't have
place.
that kind of weight.
honestly, it was like that. I was like, I was combating myself so much. Like, should I just DM Alex on Twitter? No, because they probably get like 40,000 DMs a fucking day from people just like us. Just, hey, you want to be on my show? You want to be on my show? And then you reach out. I'm like, I could have done this the whole time. So now, like BRB, I'm just gonna go message fucking Nightmind and Nextball real quick. See who else wants to just hop on.
If my Slenderverse doc proves anything, it's that you can just email people and sometimes they'll respond.
Yeah, I will say I've been very bad at this. We did have
Smart.
Kay. I reached out to Kay a while ago, and
Kay is
she
so
was
cool.
she was very nice and she's very very cool. And she's like, oh yeah, I'd love to get on. Like, just let us know when. And the timing has just never come up. I'm hoping we can get something going on that route as well.
We've been
Same
kind of
with,
talking
very
about
cool.
getting more interviewees on. So
Yeah, same with Turkey. Turkey.
Turkey.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah, he's very, very fun. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for coming on with us. It really does mean a lot to us. And the docuseries as a whole, just chef's kiss. So
Very good.
Thank you.
I'm dedicating my goodbye speech to just thanking you. Normally it's some form of smooching a father figure in your life.
Or
But
what you should do with
daddy.
your genitals. Or,
Yeah, today it's just thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you again for having me.
Do you have anything you want to say, Jason, before we leave off?
I mean, yeah, I will, as I always say, stay fucking paranoid. But this time, it's not staying paranoid about fresh content. You just go check out Alex Hera. Anything they've created on YouTube, just fucking go watch it. It's so captivating. It's really, really fucking good. So please, go show Alex some support. They could use it just like we could, as Mike said in our housekeeping earlier. But yeah, stay fucking paranoid, please. Douglas.
Oh, well, Alex, thank you.
How are you going to
You've
fluff
been a-
Alex up?
You've been a pleasure to talk to, and we appreciate it. And as I always say, take your peens, and if you can find whatever Slenderman's working with, slap yours against theirs. It'll be a good time, I promise. Matt?
Yeah. Thanks for being on. Again, keep doing what you do. It's very important. And I don't have a catchphrase.
Your catchphrase is,
that you
this is
need.
what's wrong with analog horror these days. And then it fades
I bit
away.
my tongue this entire time because I have a lot of opinions that Alex, I think, would find very upsetting.
Jarring.
Jarring. And
We'll save that
so
for the
I'm proud
after
of
show.
myself for
Yeah.
keeping that wrapped up.
We're all proud of you, Matt.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You've done
we,
good.
we are so proud of you.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, everybody. You have a really great rest of your night, and goodbye.
We love you.
Goodbye.
Don't look under the internet.